Just take a moment to think of one thing you're grateful for and feel that in your heart for a moment. Doesn't that kind of warm you up? Do you feel that? It's a lighter energy. That's what we're talking about today, about how to enter into the abundant flow through gratitude. And, some of you know that I went to college to study broadcasting. And my first job out of college was at a little tiny radio station in Medford, Oregon. We're talking $500 a month. I had no experience. And this job was to write commercials. And my boss was so great at, bringing me along in this job for the first time. And one of the things that I remember him telling me is, now keep in mind, Kitty, that the listeners are really only concerned about themselves and their own lives. So when you're writing a commercial, keep that in mind to make sure that you're convincing them that whatever product we're selling, it's something that will make their lives so much more wonderful if they just had it. Which is kind of like what I do here on Sunday mornings, right? So I kept that in mind, I think, and then I realized how true that is in all of life. And I was probably 20 when I took this job, and I remember early on going, okay, where's my raise? Where's my 4-week vacation? Where's my promotion? I kept waiting for them to be grateful for me. How wonderful I was. Come on, bring it on. Not so much. Didn't really happen. I was getting a little irritated about it. And we talked last week about that 3-year-old ego. No matter how old we are, it tends to get stuck at that age where is mine? Where is mine? And really, I think our goal here when we come in as spirits is to have those opportunities to feel deprived and then still find a way to be grateful, to serve, to give. We talked about that last week as a way to bring good into other people's lives. But doggone it, if we're not paying attention, that ego will just tell us, come on, Kitty, you told me that my abundant flow was everywhere. Where is it? Come on, bring it on. And if you don't see it right away, then you tend to run off to greener pastures. And then you find out, hey, those green pastures aren't as green as they looked from over there. We can all kind of get that, right? So let's talk a little bit, just a quick review of Abundant Flow 101 before we move forward in this today. Yes, abundant flow. What is that? It's that invisible spiritual substance of God that's omnipresent, that is the foundation of everything that we need and use and enjoy in life. We look at it as a spiritual energy that we call substance. And because it's God expressing in that way, as well as infinite other ways, we can trust that it's always present, and we can trust that it never runs out. And that abundant flow is waiting for us to pour our creativity, our divine ideas, our desires into, so that it can begin to come back to us as we're holding that in consciousness, come back to us. But it really does depend on how we're tending to those ideas. And if we plant those ideas and then we just start digging them up and saying, where are you? Why aren't you here yet? And maybe start complaining a little bit about, the person that you thought was going to bring it to you, they're taking their time about it. Or we start judging, how the process is going. We're still so focused on receiving, but we haven't really kind of focused on any good that we already have in our lives. We tend to start to drop our energy, and we step out of the dimension that has our abundant flow. So I have mentioned this a little bit in the last few months, but I really want you to hear more and more about the dimension of energy, of spiritual energy versus human physical energy. Because when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, he was talking about this very thing. That kingdom of heaven, up in the clouds with golden streets is not what we consider to be heaven, but that it's the spiritual dimension that's right here with us, And it offers an abundant flow, but we have to rise up into that level of consciousness in order to be able to match it and receive it. And that's when we experience those gifts that come from above. I think that's in the book of James. In God's spell, all good gifts surround us. They come from heaven above, right? Yeah. So thank the Lord. Yeah. There's the gratitude, right? Carol, get up here. Let's sing. Come on. So, how often do we step out of that dimension back down into the earthly human ego experience and miss the flow? Working at a radio station in San Francisco, there was my promotion. I think it was that this Broadway show came to San Francisco, and it gave tickets to the radio station to give away. And one day my boss came in with 2 tickets and said, "Here you go." And I was like, so excited. So I called my friend. I said, "Let's go." He was real excited. And we sat through The Lion King. Anybody see The Lion King on stage? I mean, through the whole thing, my jaw was just dropping because the staging, the costumes, of course, the music, and just the vibrancy that all the actors brought to the stage was incredible. One of my absolute favorite shows that I've seen. And when it was over and everybody's standing and clapping, and I turned to my friend and he's just like this. And I looked at him and he said, "Oh man, why couldn't they have ended with da-da-da? Or why didn't they do da-da-da?" I'm just like, and I thought, this is how 2 people can be in the exact same circumstances and have completely different experiences. Where did our experiences happen? Yes, in consciousness. He missed the gift. He was on the wrong frequency because he was so focused on human stuff, judgment stuff, absence, lack of stuff. Instead of being grateful for the experience, I mean, he just got a free ticket that cost somebody a lot of money, or could have cost somebody a lot of money, and he was there spending an evening with moi. I mean, come on. How can he have this experience without some joy? That was kind of the beginning of the end of that relationship. So, when we can move into gratitude and feel that joy and that appreciation of what we're receiving, our heart lightens and we become more aligned with spirit, more able to receive where our true good is. Peace and love and creativity and wisdom, which we all need to have all the good stuff throughout our lives. So it's not just about being thankful for the things that we receive, but kind of taking on this whole attitude of gratitude about life. Something that Paul tried to explain to the Thessalonians in chapter 5. He said, "Don't quench the spirit, but give thanks in all circumstances." So not for all circumstances, in all circumstances. Do you hear the difference? Okay, so you don't have to give thanks that you lost your job, but in that circumstance, you give thanks, not for that, but God is present in this. And therefore, good is present in this. I think it was Eric Butterworth that talked about there is an all-sufficiency in every insufficiency. The all-sufficiency is God. It's the only thing that provides. When I say God, I'm not talking about a being on a throne that says, "Okay, today I'm going to reward you." It's the presence of divine substance and wisdom and creativity. That's the all-sufficiency that's always here. So no matter what's happening out here, go inside and remember that life can be thriving right now, no matter what I'm seeing, in times of challenge, in times of working with difficult people. I know that you probably know at least one person in your life who it's just so hard to be in their presence. You just can't see a single good thing about them. But I promise you, absolutely, without fail, there is at least one good thing in them. and that is the presence of God. They wouldn't be standing on two legs if the divine was not the core of their being. And that core of God, that core of light and wisdom is seeking to do its best to express its light, but sometimes circumstances get the best of that person. And so what Spirit needs at that point is for you to look at that person and see the light for them, because what you look at expands. So be thankful for the light in that person that even they can't see right now in this moment, knowing that it is always there. And that when we're in need, instead of focusing on what's missing, we appreciate on what we do have. What we do have in this moment. When it makes no sense, appreciate. You know, some of you heard me tell the story that about a dozen years ago, my sister and her family lost their home in the Washington, Illinois tornado. And they were keeping people away from the city at first, but finally they allowed people to come in. Man, I was right there. I needed to be there. I just needed to be with her. So literally, as they're allowing one car at a time to come down a street, on her street, I know I was on her street, but there were no houses there to tell, like where she used to live. And people were just standing out along the street in the middle of rubble, maybe looking for things, maybe just trying to take it all in still. And they didn't even really know if they were on their property at that point. But they were looking, and they were trying to get some normalcy back. And as I got into the midst of it and was helping in different ways, what I started to see was that people were starting to point out a good thing that happened to them that day. And one of the things that was good for them was at my sister's house, because it was one of the few that, actually it was the only one on the street that had a running toilet. And you can't believe how people were so thrilled that there's a running toilet in this neighborhood. And the only catch was you had to bring your own jug of water to flush the toilet afterwards, but you could use that toilet. So they were finding good in the small things. And people were just coming with help in every direction. There was, makes my heart sing, there was many, I believe it was an Amish community that came over and started walking the fields, because Washington is kind of in the middle of corn or soy on all sides. So they're out there walking the fields of destruction and picking things up. Anything that looked like a belonging that somebody would really still want, they'd bring it to a central location and leave it there for people to come through and look through stuff later. I mean, it's just amazing what people found to do. The good was there, and more people were learning to be grateful for it. Their hearts were open and receptive to that good. And I'm sure that there were those who were just sitting back, why me? And they were missing out on that gift. It's so important to do your best to get up into what is good here. If nothing else, God is good here. And it will be the provision for whatever we need in this moment. It's just look for peace, look for life, look for wisdom if you can, and be thankful for that in the moment. No matter how crazy things are, it's kind of like having to put the cart before the horse in order for you to be able to tap into what good wants to flow through your life. Be thankful in all things. You know, we tend to take life for granted so easy until you lose your house or you lose a family member. And that's when you realize how much it meant to you. So what if we started looking at every moment as sacred? Every moment is sacred because the sacred is in it. Again, nothing could exist if it didn't have Spirit as its foundation. See everything as sacred. I still see this picture. I was driving down the street the other day in a neighborhood, and somebody was walking their dog. It's kind of like a Chihuahua, but on a stockier side. Don't know what kind of dog that was. But she'd been walking him, and he decided now was the time to just spread out, like on his tummy, front legs out, back legs out behind him, on the grass. And he's just like, it was so funny. I just drove away laughing. I was so grateful for him to remind me of the good that's present in the simplest things in life. It's sacred. It's sacred. See if you can find that and make gratitude a way of life for you. I'm going to ask Carol and Kyra to come up, and they're going to help us recognize some benefits in the wonder of gratitude. And I'm going to ask you to read along with us when it's your turn. Jan, where's your microphone, if we can have that? You got it? Okay, great. Come on up. If you want to just say hello so we make sure we can hear you.
Hello. Hello.
All right. Come on over, girls, so we get you in the light. Come into the light. All right. We don't mess around when we talk about light here. All right, so we're going to read a few things, and each time you hear us read, I want you to consider this is the benefits of living from gratitude. Say that. This is the benefit of living in gratitude. Okay? All right. Kyra, you want to start?
We're able to forget our worries.
Our body chemistry changes and stress is released.
We feel safe and peaceful. Together, yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful.
We're able to be present.
We can sit quietly and absorb the beauty around us.
We notice the wonder of being alive. Together, yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful.
Our heart opens.
We are happy, filled with joy.
Our faces shine and our eyes brighten. Together, yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful.
Gratitude attracts greater abundance in our lives.
We become a magnet for our good, even in the midst of challenge.
The more we are grateful, the more we have to be grateful for. Yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful.
We are liberated from self-centeredness and can focus on others.
We become aware of the loving relationships in our life.
We're kinder, gentler, and more compassionate. Together, yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful. Others.
Okay. Others are attracted to us.
We are fun to be around.
We connect to the Spirit in others. Yes. Yes. Divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful. We're just having fun up here. Okay.
We see God in everything and everyone.
We desire good for all.
We are one with God, and all is well. Together, yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful.
Thankfulness is a builder and strengthener.
Thankfulness is a healer, a multiplier of the good, and a dissolver of the negative.
Thankfulness is a lifter and a life giver. Yes. Yes, divine abundance flows, and I am deeply grateful. Will you give them some love for me, please? Thank you. So keep in mind that gratitude is a state of consciousness that we choose, that we can rest in, and as we do that, we align our thoughts so that we can better hear our inner wisdom. We can be guided. We can feel those divine ideas coming into our awareness. As often as we can, remind ourselves to look for something to appreciate. Now, there's one other thing that helps us do that. I'm sure there's others. But this is having a sense of humor. Would you not say that that lightens your life? You know, Wayne Dyer has written a bunch of books. This one's from Wisdom of the Ages. And he shares a story about Norman Cousins. Let me just share this with you. When Norman Cousins was told that he suffered from a disease that was virtually incurable, a deterioration of the spinal cord that would claim his life, he decided to have as many hilarious films brought to his hospital room as the family could find. Now, he's kind of old, so he spent every day watching reruns of comedy shows such as those of The Three Stooges, Abbott and Costello, and Jack Benny. His therapy was laughter. His true story, Anatomy of an Illness, was a bestseller that described how he was cured of his terminal illness through the medicine of laughter. Cured of his terminal illness through the medicine of laughter. When we laugh, this is good, you guys. When we laugh, we literally change the chemistry of the body. We introduce peptides and endorphins into our bloodstream that can have an enormous healing impact on the body. Isn't it fascinating that tears of laughter have a different chemical makeup than tears of sadness? Wow. That's impressive. Can you see how the divine orchestrated this body to keep emphasizing, stay up here, stay up here. This is where you are meant to live from, is that higher level of consciousness. So it's not a normal thing for the ego to be so relaxed and in the moment that it can just be joyful all the time. And Patch Adams, who also was a doctor and learned that humor was a medicine that could heal, he said the most revolutionary act you can commit in today's society is to be publicly happy. Isn't that weird? That should be revolutionary? You know, a bunch of us went to lunch last week at Portillo's after the service. And I don't know what we were talking about, but all of a sudden we all burst into laughter. And I just sensed some people around us that are like we were aliens or something. that was not normal for them. I kind of started to feel, maybe we should tone it down. I thought, what? No, don't tone it down. Be in your light. Be lightened up. People need to see joy more often. Don't hold it back. Let it out. Be so open and receptive to it that you know it when it's coming at you. You know, Jesus said that in order to enter the kingdom, in other words, to move in consciousness into that realm of divine mind, you must become like, what? Little children who know how to have fun. They come from a light heart. They don't take life so seriously. Use them as your guide, 3, 4 years old. After that, they start to get into these comparisons and things like that. But when they're young, just let them show you how to have fun and lighten up and lighten up. Yeah, lighten up, people. So this lighthearted energy is where we get to receive our guidance. Even in worst case scenarios, if we can find something light about it, it will help us to be able to move through it from divine guidance. You know, there was a year, I don't know how far back, 10, 20 years ago, there were all kinds of movies out about asteroids coming for Earth. One of them was called Deep Impact. And in this movie, they had sent astronauts out to blow the things up before they could destroy the Earth, but they failed. And now they're coming back, you know, planning to just land on Earth and be destroyed with everybody else. And suddenly, their captain had an idea, and it was quite an idea, I must say. Let's take a look at the video, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Could I bother everyone for a minute? Let's take a look at the big one. Now, the outgassing has created a vent a half-mile wide and at least 2 miles deep. The comet gets closer to the sun melts ice turns to steam, you get a big hole. Okay? So, how many nukes we have left in that? 4. Okay, if we can get the remaining bombs in that vent, there shouldn't be anything left of that comet bigger than a suitcase. Now, we can't do anything about the little one, but, you know, it just might give them a chance. Now, without the arming codes, we're going to have to wait to set the bomb timers until we get closer to Earth to raise Houston.
We may not have enough life support left to get back into the cargo bay for the nukes, much less to look down on the comet.
We sure as hell don't have enough propellant left in the Messiah to maneuver with. How are we supposed to get back off the surface once we've gotten down there? We don't.
Hey, look at the bright side. We'll all have high schools named after us.
Oh, yeah. So once in a while, there's those worst case scenarios that you just can't avoid. like giving your life for the entire planet. But if you can look at the bright side, it eases the pain a little bit, right? And it's something that even if we can't experience that, we can't experience what we want. If we can stick in the bright side, we're reminded, I'm a spiritual being. I'm eternal. Nothing is going to happen to me. Nothing can separate me from my good. It may feel like it for a minute while I'm in the physical, but good news is ultimately we go on and on and on with opportunities to experience joy and creativity. Should I change to another microphone? Yes? Yes? I'm okay. All right. So I want to remind you that you as a spiritual community chose humor as one of our values. And I love talking about this. I think that's so cool. You know, it's kind of funny to have, be involved with Unity as a main organization, and actually any church really that has values. I rarely see anybody else choose humor for a value. So congratulations. Do I need to change Mike? Can we solve the problem, or do I need to change?
Just check the connection. When you sat down, maybe the connection.
Maybe I sat down. Okay, I'm pushed in as far as I can go. Yes, all right. So, sense of humor about that is angels are just having fun with us today. You're going to have to lean in to hear this. So up here on the screen is a definition of humor. As a matter of fact, can we read this together? Wait, did I put it up here for you? Okay, good. Together. Humor is a lighthearted, joyful perspective that enables us to look for the good in life. So that reminds us, as a spiritual community, when our microphones are going off, can we sit here and laugh about it and have a sense of humor to lighten up? Because as soon as we go down here on the floor about it, we're outside the realm of our abundant flow. So implication about how we can be in humor, besides when things are going wrong, up here on the screen. This is how we see our community working together. Unity brings humor to messages, games, activities, social functions, and yes, even to our board meetings. That's kind of fun. Now, this one is for you. This is how you are called to behave individually with humor as a value. Together, I smile at others. I allow joy to influence my thoughts. I share the lighter side of life. I'm open to being playful. Are you open to being playful? Great. So in that case, I'm going to just close with this little item here. There was a pastor who wanted to make a very specific point in a sermon that he was making on the art of clean living. Not necessarily something we talk about these days. It was a while back, but the art of clean living, that was his sermon. And he decided to employ visual aids. So he brought out on the platform 4 glass jars. And into the first jar, he poured 1/5 of grain alcohol, and he sealed it up. And in the second jar, it said he had a smoking congregant come up, but I think it was a congregant who smoked. So the congregant who smoked came up and blew smoke into the jar to fill it up, and then they sealed that one. And then in the third jar, he poured a can of chocolate syrup, yum. And in the fourth jar, he poured vitamin-enriched potting soil. So now he turns around, something behind him here, he grabs something, he turns around, he had a hold of 4 worms. And what's he do? He places 1 worm in the jar of grain alcohol, 1 worm in the jar of cigarette smoke, the third went into the jar of chocolate, and the fourth went into the vitamin-rich potting soil, and then he went on with his comments about clean living. So at the end of the sermon, he turns to the first jar and finds that the worm in the grain alcohol was indeed quite dead. I'd like to say no animals were harmed in this, but... He opens the second jar of cigarette smoke, pulls out the second worm, which is quite dead. He goes to the third jar, pulls the worm out of the chocolate syrup, and it is also quite dead. Of course, the worm that's in the vitamin-enriched potting soil is thriving. He says, ladies and gentlemen, can you please tell me what you think the message is behind this illustration? And there's this old lady in the back of the church waving her arms frantically and crying out, Pastor, Pastor, I know, I have the answer. He says, yes, ma'am, please enlighten us. She said, what it means, what it means is that if you drink and if you smoke and if you eat chocolate, you will never have worms. So let's take that into meditation. Just feel that joy, that lightheartedness in you right now. That's what divine is. That's what spirit is, that lightheartedness. And whether it's something funny like me remembering the dog on the lawn, or you remembering a funny story that you heard, or someone that you love and appreciate and are grateful for, just take a moment to find that and allow that to warm up your heart. Whatever situation you brought to mind, see that person or that experience filled with light. The very essence of its being is divine. See into the invisible, the vibrant light, bringing life to that person or experience. Take a moment to give thanks and appreciate that divine experience, that sacred essence. As you witness that sacred moment, receive it with gratitude. This is the divine loving me through joy and abundant goodness. Receive that with gratitude for a moment. And as you take a deep breath through your heart now, just imagine that the very life that moves through your lungs is the breath of spirit breathing you. And receive that gift with gratitude. Sense the space in this room between you and others. Sense the space in this building travel in your mind outside this building to the lawn and the trees and the beautiful blue sky. Feel the breeze and the sunshine on your face. And allow gratitude to fill your heart for the gift of life, for the gift of this planet. This is the divine loving you. And as you imagine yourself leaving here today, on to do your list of things and go to your places and be with your people, I invite you now to see ahead that you walk in the sacred, that the divine is seeking to provide every need in every moment. No matter the circumstances, see into that invisible realm, overflowing with abundant good. And just let that thought of thank you fill your heart in advance. This is our life as we choose it. We give thanks now for the all-sufficiency, everywhere present, loving us. Thank you, God.